TTCSI family. Welcome on a nice Wednesday rainy afternoon. Are we all wet? Welcome to the Little Carib Theatre. We've deliberately chosen a very unique piece of Trinidad, well, Port of Spain's tapestry to have this evening's gathering. And so I was told we have to do a little housekeeping before we proceed.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Welcome to the Little Carib Theatre. Please note that eating, drinking, and smoking are not allowed in the theatre, and the use of flash photography and recording equipment is not permitted. For your convenience, washrooms are located in the lobby. Please put all cell phones on silent. Thank you for your patronage and support.
May I ask you to stand for the national anthem of Trinidad and Tobago, and let us sing our anthem. Standing as I invite Director Pouchet to invoke this evening.
As we stand, let us bow our heads. Father God, we come before you in thanksgiving and praise, thanking you for the gift of life and the gift of your unconditional love for each and every one of us present here today. We implore your blessings on the proceedings that we are about to enter into and ask your guidance as we navigate and seek answers as a community to impact in a positive way on our membership, the services sector, and by extension, the people of this beautiful Twin Island Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Guide our deliberations as we explore the areas that have been identified as game changers to positively impact our lives and livelihoods, and to support the diversification of our economy. Bless, cover, and direct the newly installed Board of Directors, our acting CEO, and help us to always keep in mind that collaboration is key to the success of TTCSI as we strive to fulfill our vision. That vision being that TTCSI will be recognized as a vibrant, diverse, and internationally competitive sector comprised of a variety of different companies, organizations, and individuals selling their services both locally and internationally. We thank you for bringing us all safely here and give us traveling mercies when we depart to get to our destination safely. Amen.
Please be seated. Folks, we have another pastor amongst our flock. Thank you, Director Pouchet. My name is Darren Leasing, and I am the acting CEO of the Trinidad and Tobago Coalition of Service Industries. Good evening and welcome. My assignment this evening, as I've been just given, is your Master of Ceremonies. So bear with me as we journey this evening's fun program that is seeking to educate and inform. May I, at this time, do the protocols? We cannot begin an event without the proper protocols. So, Ms. Eva Mahabir Das, Deputy Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Trade and Industry. Madam Diane Joseph, President of the Trinidad and Tobago Coalition of Service Industries and the Board of Directors. Our friends at Exim Bank, Mr. Sheldon Thomas. Speakers, this evening would not be special without you speakers. And I would not do you justice by calling names. All I would say before the thank yous is thank you for gracing us on this stage this evening. The TTCSI is truly a pioneering association. My apologies. There are people, they are the unsung heroes, those sitting down above us, the media, and I cannot, it would be remiss of me to say good evening and welcome to our friends in the media. So let me start from the beginning. The TTCSI is a truly pioneering association which, when utilized correctly and in the best interests of Trinidad and Tobago, holds no limits. I am humbled to be placed in the position as your acting chief executive. In this light, I am charged with truly exposing individuals and associations to make themselves export-ready and, more importantly, profitable. And this ultimately redounds to the benefit of the Ministry of Trade and Industry, our partners, and our economy. My assignment of opening remarks ought to be a 50-minute treatise, but I'm charged with doing so within 2 to 3 minutes. The TTCSI membership is perhaps the most diverse membership that exists in a BSO of our size and complexity. When one considers that we are in a market with chambers of geographic locations with specialties in business, one understands well how the services sector stacks up against the manufacturing and/or product-oriented chambers. And so, our assignment moving forward is a simple one. The TTCSI is in a post-pandemic era must advocate for all businesses, knowing full well that the services are everything and anything. We, the members of the TTCSI, must look from within to see how we can work with our networks and our membership to help each other build the capacity needed to forge internationally. Your secretariat and I will continue to work with each and every member to actualize the business models. Ultimately, for our board of directors, every member's success is that of TTCSI's. And we welcome the opportunity to use this pilot series, this, our first in a long line of podcast series, as one of many which will stimulate conversation and yield results. While we understand that the budget is in the coming weeks, the TTCSI has taken from front and elected to have our wish list circulated as far and wide as possible to the reading of the said budget. President Joseph will highlight them shortly. And this is important because every citizen, all 1.4 or 5 million of us, have a responsibility to ensure the success of our brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles, but especially our children. This generation that thinks and operates in great contrast to how we understood our needs and wants to be. In this vein, we must support local, we must buy local, but we must export to all. In our quest for excellence, we must recognize the pivotal role of data in shaping the future of our services sector. Accurate and comprehensive data collection is not merely a task, but a strategic imperative that will empower us to make informed decisions and drive sustainable growth. This, therefore, is a clarion call to all service providers. The TTCSI Services Index Survey, in collaboration with the Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago, is a crucial initiative that we will be reintroducing quarterly, as trending data is the best metric to measure our strengths and weaknesses. We urge all service providers to complete and share this survey, as it will provide invaluable insights into our sector's performance and needs. As I speak, I'm hoping that the Secretariat would have been pinging your phones, as the membership chat already has the forms. I thank you and do enjoy our pre-budget discussion. The 3 C's, as we see it, are connect, collaborate, and create. It is our mandate to connect with each of you and collaborate together and to create the success to make us reach the world. I thank you. Putting on my Master of Ceremonies hat, it is now my distinguished pleasure to invite to the podium the President. Let me make sure I'm correct, folks. The President of the Trinidad and Tobago Coalition of Service Industries, Ms. Diane Joseph.
Deputy Permanent Secretary Acting, Ministry of Trade and Industry, Ms. Eva Mahabir Das, representatives of our sponsor, the Exim Bank, directors of the Trinidad and Tobago Coalition of Services Industries, TTCSI CEO, Mr. Darren Leasing, and members of staff, distinguished presenters, valued members, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I count it a distinct honor and privilege to stand here today as we assemble together to share information and disclose key service sector matters. This from the perspective of challenges and opportunities prior to our national budget presentation, which is expected to take place in the very near future. Despite the established protocols, I would like to extend a special welcome and thank you to our Deputy Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Trade, and to let her know that it was my pleasure to interact with you last evening at the Hyatt, and also to have you here this afternoon. To the distinguished panel of presenters, we are honored to have you. Rest assured that we were looking for the best in the industry, and that's why you are here. We are assured that you will use your expertise to bring various perspectives to edify us on critical matters relative to our economy, our people, and our country. As president of the TTCSI, this is my first opportunity since May 3rd this year to address you, our valued members. It is therefore an important time for me and my board, and I can tell you I think I have the best board since TTCSI came into operation, right? So it is really very important for me and my board as I address you in my official capacity and as your board interacts with you for the first time since our last AGM in May. We look forward with it with so much anticipation. I wish to extend my profound thanks and appreciation to our Ministry of Trade and our Honorable Minister, Paula Gopi-Schoon, for her support of the work of the TTCSI over the years and for her ongoing collaboration with us. I am sorry that she's not present today, but I understand that her schedule did not allow it. I am also very happy that she saw it worthy to have her deputy PS share her time with us. I ask that you take back our appreciation to our minister. The services sector is a vital pillar of our economy, playing a crucial role in both employment and economic diversification. Given its importance, therefore, it would be remiss of me not to take this opportune occasion to highlight some of our key proposals for TTCSI and what we would have shared with the media and everyone else for consideration in our upcoming national budget. 1. TTCSI proposes the creation of a dedicated services task force. This task force will be instrumental in developing industry standards, implementing certification programs, and advising the government on regulations and accreditation processes related to the services sector. 2, we also acknowledge the significant role that the services sector can play in national economic diversification through its export potential. To harness this, we advance for the establishment of an export booster program specifically for services, as well as the creation of centers of excellence for innovation. These initiatives will provide targeted support to service providers aiming to expand into international markets, while also fostering innovation and entrepreneurship. 3, as the only and duly recognized legitimate national umbrella organization representing and united all service sector associations in Trinidad and Tobago, the TTCSI sees itself as the central hub for advocating the services sector. I can tell you we do that very well. To effectively fulfill this pivotal role, we need funding to support critical initiatives, including research and advocacy, capacity building, and industry networking. 4, in today's rapidly advancing digital age, the TTCSI is actively advocating for measures that encourage service providers to embrace technology. This includes promoting digital transformation, enhancing cybersecurity awareness and support, and advancing the development of e-commerce and online service platforms. 5, the final and arguably most important item in our list of budget recommendations is the establishment of a strong services brand for Trinidad and Tobago. Even if we excel in many areas, we may never reach our full potential if the world is not where we would like to be. We need to take our services outside, and we need to show persons what we offer. Therefore, the TTCSI re-emphasizes the importance of developing a national services brand strategy and implemented targeted marketing and promotional efforts for service sector poised for export. As we dive into today's discussion, I encourage every one of you to actively engage our presenters. Your insights and contributions are very important as we collaborate to shape the future of the services sector and the broader economy of Trinidad and Tobago. I believe that exciting times lie ahead for the TTCSI and the services sector, demonstrating its significant value and enhancing our readiness for the economic challenges to come. We at the TTCSI are proud to play our part in strengthening the gross domestic product and overall economy of Trinidad and Tobago. Together, we are building and will continue to build a more resilient and prosperous future for all. Ladies and gentlemen, as I prepare to close, I want to personally offer my thanks and appreciation for your presence, and I look forward with much anticipation to the presentations from our competent presenters. Presentations that I am assured will be both productive and enlightening. Following all of the discussions, we will share a light time together and we will mix and mingle with you for the first time since taking office. I look forward to this evening's proceedings and our networking and collaboration with much anticipation. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Folks, that's our president. Might we give her another round of applause? In the audience, I see former presidents. I see our IPP, Mark Edgell. Thank you, sir, for your service. Angela is no stranger to the world, but she's also a past president of TTCSI. And Lara, hiding in the corner over there, is another past president of the TTCSI. At this time, it is on behalf of our collective, our distinguished honor to have at the podium bringing remarks on behalf of the Ministry of Trade, our DPS, Ms. Eva Mahabir Das.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So just before I came on the stairs, Diane said to me, watch your step, okay? And I didn't watch my step and it's there. So anybody else coming up, watch your step. Okay, so good afternoon again. Ms. Diane Joseph, President, CEO Darren Leasing, members of the TTCSI, panelists, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Let me begin by saying that it is a great pleasure to be here today to join with the TTCSI in its pre-budget mix and mingle event. I commend the TTCSI for continuing to host forums such as these, as it provides a platform for key stakeholders such as industry leaders, practitioners, policymakers like ourselves to discuss challenges, opportunities, and need for reforms in the sector. The government of Trinidad and Tobago, and by extension, the Ministry of Trade and Industry, also considers ourselves to be service providers. We provide essential services in healthcare, education, law enforcement, and other areas. Therefore, it is important for us to continue supporting the services sector and the TTCSI in all its initiatives geared towards fostering growth, job creation in the sector. As we all know, services has tremendous potential to contribute positively to the growth and sustainable development of the domestic industry. And the current economic landscape, governments are searching for innovative ways to stimulate economic growth and sustainable development through various policy initiatives. Whilst policymakers may chart the direction, the efforts of service operators like yourselves are critical in attaining policy objectives and ultimately any gains that the economy will recognize. The government of Trinidad and Tobago seeks to provide a conducive environment for economic growth, maintain currency and price stability, and enforce and defend civil rights. In order to achieve this, the cooperation of the services sector is required. As in the current landscape, you, as service providers, will be the engine for economic growth through innovation, enhanced productivity, and employment generation. The Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago, in its July 2024 Economic Bulletin, reported that positive outturns were experienced with the non-energy sector, including services. This progress was driven by the continued growth in the trade and repairs sector of 11.7%, and non-energy activity was further supported by growth in the financial and insurance services of 1.6%, accommodation and food services of 1.5%, and domestic services of 1%. Further, the World Bank has reported that commercial services exports for Trinidad and Tobago were approximately $883 million in 2022. This signifies the extent to which this sector is instrumental in moving the country forward toward development. The World Bank has also reported that for the period 2023, the country's GDP amounted to $28.14 billion. It has been recognized that the services sector is the largest contributor to GDP and employment. However, it only accounts for about 10% of our exports. The Ministry of Trade and Industry is keen on improving this position, and as such, we are happy to have supported the TTCSI with the establishment of the online services database and company portal, as well as the Gateway to Trade program. This program in particular has exposed many of our talented service providers with developing export and market penetration strategies, as well as knowledge and skills to exporting. Recognizing that the labor-intensive nature of the sector and its ability to provide more employment opportunities, the Ministry of Trade and Industry, through other programs, has also sought to build the country's human resource capacity in the services sector through a couple apprenticeship programs, the first of which is for the non-energy sector, which was launched in May 2022. And this 3-year program is expected to train over 300 apprentices in areas such as mechanical engineering and industrial maintenance technology. There is also the apprenticeship program for wood and wood products, which was launched in August 2022 and is expected to transform and expand the industry. Many of you may also be aware of the support being offered to services exporters via our commercial officers and attaches in Panama, the UK, Miami, Guyana, and Jamaica. The officers have been in place for just over a year and continue to assist service providers with forging new linkages, finding new markets and business opportunities. I encourage everyone here this evening to make good use of these officers. A few weeks ago, another major milestone was achieved in strengthening our export promotion institutional arrangements with the legal establishment of the new Trinidad and Tobago Investment Promotion Agency. This new entity will serve as a mechanism for increasing the promotion of the export of goods and services from Trinidad and Tobago to regional and international territories, as well as attracting foreign investment to Trinidad and Tobago. Fiscal incentives to support the services sector will be explored and implemented in the rollout of this new state agency. Finally, Trinidad and Tobago continues to contribute and participate in regional efforts to develop the wider regional services sector via the development of sector strategies for key regional service subsectors. Currently, efforts are underway to develop a national implementation plan for the postal and courier, tourism, and professional services sectors. So you can look forward to hearing more from the ministry on this in the months ahead. These strategies are intended to assist member states strengthen the capacity and competitiveness of their service subsectors and facilitate more competitive trade with the rest of the world. Apart from these 3 areas, CARICOM has also been developing several strategies for other subsectors, including culture and entertainment, information and communication technology, sport, education, and health and wellness services. Ladies and gentlemen, these are just some of the activities that the Ministry of Trade is pursuing in favor of the services sector. The ministry is here to support service providers and provide an enabling environment to help the business community and service exporters to trade. In closing, I would like to reiterate some of the words shared by your president and ours too in the TTCSI's Independence Day message. The services sector is not just a pillar of our economy. It is the heartbeat of our nation's progress, innovation, and adaptability. as the Ministry of Trade and Industry is committed to and will continue to support the TTCSI in its effort to develop the services sector in Trinidad and Tobago. I would like to acknowledge the work of Ms. Joseph and Mr. Leasing and the entire TTCSI team for their efforts to grow the services sector. This is evident in, as we know later on in the program, the launch of the Doing Business with the World publication. The Ministry extends its heartiest congratulations to the TTCSI in this release. This achievement reflects your dedication, expertise, and continued work towards advancing the services sector in Trinidad and Tobago. I wish you all the best and every success. Thank you.
I don't think we've done justice to the... Do we understand the work that is going on behind the scenes to drive our economy? Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Arts, they told me I can't touch you because it is I cannot touch speaking of you at this time, because at this time, we're going straight into the juice. And because TTCSI is full of talent, I am now instructed to bring the first moderator to the stage to convene the first panel. Folks, because of that rain, we have no tea break, eh? We're going. It's juice time. So at this time, may I invite to the podium a director at the TTCSI and the president of the greater, well, not greater, Tunapuna Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Ramon Gregorio.
Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for joining us despite the inclement weather outside. So it's my pleasure as a director of the TTCSI to be the moderator for this afternoon's lively discussions. And we are delighted to kick off the sessions of our pre-budget discussion and official magazine launch today. So today we'll be exploring critical approaches to combating crime and enhancing the business environment. And we have quite a few good speakers here today to enlighten us on these topics. So the first person I'd like to welcome to the stage will be Mr. Thane Pear, our first speaker, who will be discussing strategic approaches to combating crime and enhancing business and public safety. Mr. Pear brings valuable insights into the critical issue of public safety and its impact on our business environment. We look forward to hearing his strategies for creating a safer community for both businesses and citizens. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Thane Pear.
Good afternoon, everyone. Deputy Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Trade and Industry, Ms. Eva Mahabir Das, President Diane Joseph, and members of the board of TTCSI, Chief Executive Officer, Acting Darren Leasing, and Management of TTCSI, invited guests, members of the media, good afternoon. Strategic approaches to combating crime and enhancing business. What more can be said about crime? I think this topic has been beaten ad nauseum, but here we are. Personally, I think we have said all that we can say about crime, and what you will be hearing from time to time is just a regurgitation of what has been said. We continue to complicate, in my opinion, simple issues that can be fixed with proper strategy. Nevertheless, I'll get into it. Firstly, I am particularly attracted to the C's, as Mr. Lee Singh mentioned in his speech: connect, collaborate, and create. Particularly the second C, collaborate. Now, crime remains a bugbear that continues to grip our society. On a daily basis, we are bombarded with images, reports of criminality that exist, oftentimes too close to our homes. At this rate, it is not unreasonable for those of us who have not been directly impacted by crime to feel as though it's only a matter of time for us to become a statistic. However, the unfortunate truth about crime is that crime will be a part of our society. It is going to be here. And in any society, it will continue to be part of it. If we are being honest, we will accept that crime is a problem regionally and internationally, so it is not something that is unique to Trinidad and Tobago. We need to accept that. So what do? We can sit back, we can complain about the government, we can complain about the commissioner, we can complain about the judiciary, we can complain about any other institution we can think of. I'm not saying to stop, because what we need to do is we need to continue to demand that the institutions perform to their best ability to secure our society. So I'm not telling you to stop. What I am urging is for us to take it a step forward. Let us, while we demand better from them, we must look within ourselves individually, look in our organizations as a collective, and see how best we can contribute in assisting the institutions to make this society a more secure society. The fact is, we as individuals, we have a part to play. You as industry leaders, you have a big part to play. And as I said, while we must continue to demand better of our institutions, we must also take the opportunity to reassess our position in this landscape. It affects all of us. Whether we complain or we don't complain, it's going to affect us. So let's take a step back, let's reassess where we're at, and see how best we can contribute. Because individually, we have something to contribute. The Trinidad and Tobago Coalition of Services Industry is a coalition of industries, service industries. One thing that I believe is that as a collective, and perhaps take it a step back as an individual, we may not understand fully how we can contribute to assisting the institutions. The institutions themselves and the people who may head the institutions, they themselves may not, one, be aware of your services and what you can do to contribute. And two, simply, they just don't know. I mean, we're all human beings. You don't know what you don't know. Leadership demands that we positively influence the change that we seek. With regards to the crime situation, we must strategize. The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service is just one institution within the criminal justice system. But for ease of reference, allow me to be so bold and simplify our crime situation into 2 points, just 2. And I've chosen those 2 points because those 2 points, if I can break it down into 2 points, those 2 areas fall directly within the purview of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service: detection and deterrence. As an example, we have the detection rate of homicides hovering for the past, maybe, I will say 2 decades, at 10%. What that suggests is that, well, not what it suggests, what it says is that 9 out of 10 homicides are not detected. Now, detection directly correlates to deterrence, because what happens is, if I don't get caught, I'm out there and I can continue conducting my criminal activities. Or, 2, if 9 out of 10 times I am likely to get away with my actions and my activities, I will not be discouraged to cease. That is where the deterrence comes in. So while I have identified 2 points, point 1 flows into point 2 directly. With this in mind, as a service industry, as leaders in the industries, the thought process must be how can we as a collective strategize and provide assistance to law enforcement to get these numbers up? Now, I have observed that the leadership of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, they seem intent on building relationships and partnerships with business communities. And in this regard, I implore members of the TTCSI to participate in these initiatives and reach out to them and even suggest other worthy initiatives for consideration. Allow me to make mention of one such initiative that I've observed, and I'm happy to see that there's a Tunapuna member from the Tunapuna Chamber of Commerce, it is, where there's a project called the Eagle Eye Project, which is a joint project between the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service and the Tunapuna Chamber of Commerce. And what that essentially is, it's a partnership, a venture that they engaged in, and they operationalized 400 or odd cameras which feed directly into the command center of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. Now that provides real-time intelligence, that provides real-time opportunity for the police to provide rapid response. And among other things that, we can go into it and I'll probably go beyond the time here, how beneficial something like that can be. Now, that is a simple initiative that a partnership provides. Another issue that I think that has exercised the psyche of the national community would be the crime, which is really demanding money by menace. Most of us will be familiar with it by the term extortion. All right? It is my understanding that in response, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, they set up a task force to deal specifically with that. And what is particularly commendable about this is that it shows that the police service, for all its ills that we are all too familiar about, it is adapting to changes within the security landscape. It is capable of adapting. And that is not something that we should take lightly. We should accept and understand that, listen, maybe they do understand. Not maybe, they do understand. And as the wider society, we need to believe in them some more. Now, what happens with that task force is that the opportunity is there for the members of the business community to reach out to the police service directly, right? Now, it then falls to the business community to provide law enforcement with the necessary information required to successfully detect and prosecute. So, I say that just to underscore the point that the police can go so far, but we as members of the public, we need to reach them at some point. So, all in all is not lost. And I am confident that we have within the society the skill set required to move forward as a society and have that pushback. What I think is lacking is the coordination and an understanding of the skill set, one, and a knowledge of the availability of the skill set. And in that regard, I would suggest to the TTCSI leadership, maybe you can find a way to harness the skill set that you may have available to you and package it in such a palatable way that the police service and other arms of law enforcement would be hard-pressed to accept. Right? Because as I said earlier, you simply just don't know what you don't know. Right? So before I leave, let me take this opportunity to extend congratulations to TTCSI on the launch of its official magazine. I think the work that is being done is invaluable, and I thank you. Members, thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Thane Pear. So wearing my Tunapuna Chamber President hat, it's always good to hear about the Eagle Eye being mentioned in a public forum. Obviously, we're doing great things in Tunapuna, but another time and place for that conversation. So I'd like to invite, in the interest of time, invite the other panelists up on stage. We have Mr. Dexter Simon and Dr. Marlene Atsk, if you could join us on the stage. So our next panelist is Mr. Dexter Simon. Mr. Dexter Simon will be presenting a case study on investing in health for a thriving business environment. Mr. Simon will share practical examples of how investments in health can positively influence our business landscape. And his presentation, oh, sorry, can you hear me now? Let's start that over, my apologies. So the next speaker will be Mr. Dexter Simon. And Mr. Simon will be presenting a case study on investing in health for a thriving business environment. Mr. Simon will share practical examples of how investments in health can positively influence our business landscape, and his presentation will highlight the interconnection between public health and economic prosperity. So each of the presentations will be about 10 minutes long, and there'll be a question and answer segment right after the last presenter. So, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Dexter Simon.
Afternoon, everyone. All protocols observed, because I'm on a time limit. I normally speak for hours, but they give me 10 minutes. So pray for me. Time has started. To start, my journey has been one that is very colorful. Coming from a background profession as an architect for 32 years, and then having this brainchild to switch into health and fitness about 9 years ago. On the cusp of the COVID and the pandemic, I had a running club and a gym, and then came COVID. Within 1 week of COVID being present around the world, myself and my twin brother, who is the Trinidad and Tobago national middle and long distance coach, we decided to hit the ball running one time and invest into online training. Instantly. We took the plunge, barefooted, we took the leap of faith, and we went straight into online training instantly within 7 days of COVID even happening. That was about 3 years ago. A professional bodybuilder. I've done 54 international shows. I'm a 3-time First Citizens Award nominee, Athlete of the Year. I have right now, from the privilege of having a successful business coming out of COVID, which I will explain, a gym, another gym under construction, we have a running club, multi-sport club, a restaurant under construction right now. We have a strength and training facility. We do workshops online with yoga, resistance training, and I am one, if not the best, most outstanding transformation artist in the Caribbean. I've transformed 4,900 people since COVID to now in about 3 to 4 years, including 117 doctors. So I speak from a place of experience and knowledge, having been through the international. I've traveled to 53 countries already. having seen the landscape and what the interactiveness of international tie-in through internet services and also the health gains for companies with profitability can do. I have serviced companies like BP, Shell, the Army. I've serviced companies and institutions like the Auditors Association, the Law Association, to name a few. I've had many ministers under my purview and had many prime ministers from the Caribbean also. A host of businessmen and business people from over 25 different countries flock to this information because they want to be better in their health, to be better at their business. Speaking to one of the, and I often don't know why I take notes because I speak so much I just forget, leave the notes and I go into a tangent. But speaking to one of the ministers who passed through my transformation, he mentioned to me that our health budget is one of the largest ones. That is, it's really, it could be better and less overpowered and pounded on the nation's overall budget. And how do we utilize this information and knowledge to become and present ourselves with better opportunities to utilize the money that we are actually using on health, on poor health, in other places? It has been a burden. It has been a burden on us. The use of health in business is critical because of the diversification of the large amounts of money and uptakes in income that could be better utilized. What I have done through my community, my growing community, which, like I mentioned, over 4,900 transformations to date. I started off pre-COVID with groups of probably 75 to 100. Post-COVID, hitting the international scene where people found it more safe to do things from their home, more convenient to do things from their home, more accessible to do things from their home, very easy to lose weight, to look good, and as my clients tell me all over the world, to look sexy. That's the ultimate goal. I've had over the last couple of days some people, elderly people, because my range, my demographics is between the age of 40 to 80. Why? Because at this time, most people understand health is wealth. Most people at this time realize that the clock ticking out, they're running out, and they need to pay more attention to health. So just a small case study, just two people phoned me yesterday. One was a retired, two of them were bankers, retired banker who wants to go on a cruise at the age of 72, and she told me that the cruise is going to stop and they're going to go for a hike, and I'm ashamed of how my legs looking. The other one was a banker who just decided that he retired at the age of 60 and he wants to go on a trip, but he wants to look fit and he wants upper chest. And I asked him when he go into this cruise, he said in 3 weeks' time. My point in this is, one, it's never too late. Two, we got to do the things that we need to do in health in order to observe the maximization of our true potential in business. We could totally eradicate absenteeism, days off, time off. We know about employees. We could totally eradicate more efficiency in the workplace. We could also eradicate people working late. That's one of the things that I'm an advocate of. Because working late tells me something. Is either I'm overloading you as a boss or you're inefficient as an employee. Think of it. Right? So that's one of the things as an architect, as a director of my firm, I cut out early. No working late. Be more effective, be more efficient, be more vigilant. But how do we accomplish that? Having a conversation with one of the prime ministers in the Caribbean, and I don't want to say that because I might sell it out instantly. You don't have many. I was told, Dexter, the more I want to take on, the more healthy I need to be. The more I want to take on, the more healthy I need to be. And these are words that should resonate very, very intently, because the purpose of health in business is creating wealth so that we can enjoy it at the end of the day. Not spend all years creating wealth And at the end of the day, we are spending this very same money that we saved and amassed to keep ourselves alive. The quality of life is the other point. We might be able to wing it through, We might be able to wing it through. But what kind of quality life you have? I have 2 children. I'm 55 years old, right? And I have 2 kids, and I go on vacation with them. I travel a lot. And I can see myself doing anything that they ask me to do. They want a jet ski, they want to. And this, for me, is more precious than all the 9 or 10 businesses I have. Pre-COVID, my income, because of the tap into the international market and the diversification of the online training, has improved and increased over 300% and sustained at least 90% of my clients since COVID. So now in person, in the gym, is minuscule to me. I have about 12 screens around me that I actually created an area in my gym that I do online training. I do transformation, so I get you back to your health, you lose weight, you're able to be, and have a lot of businessmen that just come to me because they understand what they could do and they send their employees. So I have packages, and I have annual events that are uptakes of large income sources, so I have little reliance on monthly income. Easily packaged. But you have to have these key events throughout the year that will bring the income to you, drive it from creating and keeping your community. And that's the gist of it. So you think of DexterSimon.com, to my website, started 6 years ago with 400 people in the community, and now at 4,900 people. And currently I have a group of a church that is 100 people, and another group for people from about 16 countries that's 150, that's going to add to it and keep growing. And every 3 months I have a cycle, and I keep growing. And then every quarter I bring in this massive sort of a signature event that brings people and reminds them and gets them to recalibrate themselves and feel good about themselves and look forward to something. So constantly you're grabbing at your product because of the continuity, the family orientation, and the community. And a lot of businesses lose that and miss that. Keeping people family-driven, health-driven, people happy and liking themselves first. 1 minute ago. Right, 1 minute ago. So, in wrapping up, I just want to mention a couple of things. Not all movement equates to progress. Not all movement equates to progress. Time is limited. Time is limited. Health is hard, but sickness is harder. Choose your hard. Health is hard, but sickness is harder. Choose your hard. Follow your why. Be kind to people and do unto others as you would like them to do unto yourself. Simple. Thank you for having me, everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, can you hear me? Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Dexter Simon. I am actually one of the beneficiaries of Mr. Simon's programs, and we'll talk in about 3 months' time and we'll see how the progress goes. But I've lost 10 pounds already, if there's anything to go by. So I'm going to give Doc in this group. So, our last presenter, our last panelist will be Dr. Marlene Atz, and no need for an introduction officially on this forum, because Dr. Atz is literally everywhere on matters of economic affairs of Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean. So Dr. Atz will provide an economic perspective on these issues, and we are pleased to welcome her. She's a respected economist who will offer her expert analysis on the topics we have discussed. Her insights will help us understand the economic implications of safety and health investments in our business sector. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Marlene Atz.
Thank you. And can you hear me now? Yes, lovely. And I'm going to, in the interest of time and space, and I don't want to be tottering around to the stage, because Murphy will take over and something will happen. I prefer to sit here because there was also a mic on the chair, so I figured it was there for a reason. I am honored, I am humbled, I am privileged to have been invited by the TTCSI to participate this afternoon in today's event. I actually met Vashti and she threatened, just shortly before she demitted office, she threatened to involve me more in TTCSI's activities. So I see even in her absence, she's living through with her threats. So I am pleased to be here, and I am more than humbled to be in the presence of the incomparable Dexter Simon. I've heard of you, and today was the first day, and as I heard you speak there, I was a little intimidated, and that doesn't happen to me often. And I'm also very honored to be in the presence of Mr. Thane Pear, and his face looks familiar, and of course, Ramon. I'm from Tunapuna, so we'll talk about that eagle eye thing at another point, a different time, that kind of thing, because I am from Tunapuna. As I listened to the two presentations, I must admit I wasn't too clear what was going to be my role and function, but I suppose they asked me to be here so I could talk, so I'm talking. We've had this conversation. We're preparing, we're gearing up for the D-Day, whenever D-Day is, when we hear this budget presentation, when we hear about how money is going to be spent, when we hear about all of the wonderful things. And this year's D-Day is going to be an interesting D-Day because it comes pretty close to the next D-Day, an election day. So this year's budget presentation is likely to be extremely interesting, but I wanted to focus on the crime and the health as presented by my two colleagues on the panel, and two interesting topics. And I want to focus or frame what I want to say on the conversation around return on investment. I'm an economist by profession, and everyone in here is into some kind of business, so I think it's not lost on people when I say about the return on the investment. And it is also not lost on anyone here that between health and crime, national security, they get some of the largest budget allocations. Anyone here not aware of that? So COVID-19, 2020, because of the existential circumstances we were facing, fancy word to say that we didn't know what was going on with COVID, so health had to get plenty money. Separate and apart from their budget allocation, the government went back and they went into the Heritage and Stabilization Fund and gave the Ministry of Health additional funding because the circumstances required us to dig deep. And luckily we had not quite a pot of gold, we had some savings, so government was able to go in there. So 2020, 2021, the Ministry of Health got the largest allocation, primarily to deal with COVID-19 and obtaining, acquiring vaccines, etc. I listened to Dexter, and pardon me, I'm going, being familiar, hopefully I'll get a discount for your program. Listening to Dexter, I said, the old adage, your health is your wealth. And I also wondered if I was in a different profession, because Dexter said he don't look at his monthly salary, because Dexter said that, lots of money comes in. But your health is your wealth. And I have to ask the question, given what we have spent on the health allocations in Trinidad and Tobago, whether we think we have a return on our investment. The health sector has, as I mentioned, received some of the largest allocations. But Dexter is still in business, and he's in a very profitable business because we have an unhealthy society. You hear the Minister of Health talking about fast foods. He came out of what I thought was, a couched space recently, and he spoke about the amount of fast foods that people consume leading to healthy lifestyles. And why am I raising this? Because unhealthy staff lead to low levels of productivity, lead to higher levels of absenteeism is not rocket science, and it also impacts on economic growth. So as much as, economists and that sort of thing, all of these things contribute to where we are as a country and where we hope to go. So if we don't correct things in the background, then we can't blame anything on anybody else if it's not looking up for us, and if we're having challenges in the workspace, and if we're having challenges in the economic space. So there's a conversation around economic growth in Trinidad and Tobago, economic growth very inextricably linked to the energy sector, DAX and the. And the Minister of Finance recently, because he was making an affidavit in support of the Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Authority, he said in his affidavit, he saw in that affidavit that Trinidad and Tobago is in for challenging times. his affidavit, his words, not mine, because of what is happening in the energy sector. And I'm going to add this here, because of what is happening in the energy sector, and because of the challenges and the low economic growth that we're going to realize as a result of the contractions in the energy sector, something has to compensate. When you have a $60 billion budget, as we have had, we went back into the supplementary appropriation, fancy word to say the mid-year review, so we now have one of the largest budgets, a $9 billion deficit, meaning that the government has now spent $9 billion more than they actually earned. But we have a $60 billion plus $61 billion national budget. If there's a decline in the energy sector, something else has to fill that gap, which is why it's important for us to organize spaces like the services sector. So this conversation is not an arbitrary one. You come to a nice TTCSI event and you go and mix and mingle after. This is serious business. And the point that Dexter was making about health, every one of us can understand the impact. COVID-19 was the most important thing I think happened in Trinidad and Tobago's recent history. Not just because of the drama around the COVID and the uncertainty, etc. But it brought us to a point, and I was having a conversation with Angela and some others before we started the session. We were forced to do things differently because we couldn't roll up and die. We had to survive. And you couldn't depend on the government to help you survive, because in your individual spaces, as business persons, everybody nodding, yeah, you know, it's true. But the minute we think that COVID left the building, and it hasn't left the building, we were back to normal. People was ordering KFC online until they closed it, like normal, like nothing. Looking for every opportunity. Apps were invented. There were things happening. People were being innovative, and we're going to talk about that in the second section. But people were innovating. Work from home. People were forced to use their computers. They were forced to do certain things. They were forced to think differently. And the government did what some argue is what governments are supposed to do. They were left to provide the enabling environment. But we as individuals, every one of us in this room, had to learn to do things. When you couldn't take the line in the supermarket, you had to learn to cook. Whether it was good, bad, or indifference, you had to learn to do things. And I'm saying in the context of, firstly, Dexter's point about health, it is not simply an adage. Our health is our wealth. And if it is that we are spending some of the largest budgets on the health sector, we need to ask ourselves, as citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, whether we're seeing the return on the investment. Are you comfortable as citizens of Trinidad and Tobago that you have seen the return on the investment, given the amounts of money that is being spent on the health sector? And then, of course, I have to turn to crime. Eagle Eye, whatever the other initiatives might be, again, if it is that we are seeing declining economic growth as a result of what is happening in the energy sector, and other spaces have to come into that market to help us maintain the lives to which we've grown accustomed, there will be some adjustments. The Minister of Finance said that things will be harder, not me. He said it. I'm repeating what he said. Crime is a deterrent to everything that we want to do. So we cannot talk about economic growth unless we solve crime. And one of the points that Thane made is that there needs to be a coordinated approach to this. I hold no brief for the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, none. I have lots of friends there, but I hold no brief for them. I hold no brief for the government. Each and every one of us need to demand the kind of society that we want to live in. I mean, there are those who have the resources. I don't. I work at the University of the West Indies. I'm a public servant. Who can leave? Who can pack up and decide that they no longer want to exist in this space? But to those of us who have to live here, crime is going to impact on everything. Economic growth is going to decline. The IMF reduced, the International Monetary Fund, reduced their growth projections from 3.2% to 2.4% for Trinidad and Tobago based on what is happening in the energy sector. What is going to help us support moving forward? If we do not get crime under control, no foreign investor will want to come to Trinidad and Tobago. No local investor is going to want to invest because you're going to have to spend more money providing security services for your business, and it's going to eat into the bottom line. Not to sound vulgar, and I do not wish to insult anyone, but only have one set of businesses making plenty money in this country. Hazard a guess. Who? Who? I think that's second, Lara. I think that's second. One business making plenty money. Alcohol, probably, yeah. During COVID, plenty. Undertakers, funeral homes, making plenty money. I read recently that the cemetery in Arima, they say no mass. No mass. And given the bilingual nature of our country, I'm sure everybody knows what no mass means. They can't take no more. So who is making money? And until we understand that crime is not, there should not be a siloed approach to dealing with crime in Trinidad and Tobago. It is everybody's business, literally and figuratively. It is going to impact on our bottom line. No investor is going to come here when they have to pay for private security. No business is going to want to open if their workers can't come to work, if they have to pay extra, as the case might be. So I don't want to belabor the point. I just wanted to share some initial thoughts, because I know we're going to have the opportunity to have a Q&A and some conversation. But I do think, in terms of these two very sexy topics, health and crime, that we need to ask ourselves whether we are realizing the return on the investment that has been spent over years, but also moving forward. Can we afford, as Trinbagonians, to maintain the status quo, spending money on health, but having an unhealthy society? I have no problem against entrepreneurship, and I'm real happy for Dexter, and I'm real happy to meet him, and I'm asking again publicly if I'll get a discount, but moving swiftly, you know. But we also cannot afford to have the crime situation that we're having in Trinidad and Tobago. And what pains me is the youth involvement in crime, which has an implication for future generations. I don't know if it will have a future generation in time to come, because every time you see someone involved in crime, it is a youth, someone between the age of 15 and 35. If you get a 35-year-old bandit, you're lucky. But it's usually 15, 16, 17, which means that they're not going to school either. So there are a number of intersecting conversations to be had. And I welcome the opportunity to chat with you on these issues as we move forward, but these are all economic issues. So I thank you for your attention.
So ladies and gentlemen, let's give our panel a round of applause again. So at this juncture, we're going to have an open mic Q&A segment. So we invite persons to come forward, ask your questions of the panel. We also have a floating mic if persons are at the higher areas of the auditorium. Feel free to come to the mic and ask the questions the burning questions you have on your chest that you just need to get off. Lara? Monica to Lara.
Solve crime or make a baby dent. Some of you, I hope, would have seen recently that my organization signed a partnership with COSTAT to help reduce recidivism. It is a very tangible way that employers in this country can work with young people who have served their time and are now out of the prison system looking for a second chance, essentially. If you have read anything at all about the Link Up program, the graduates are both entrepreneurs in some cases, as well as potential employees in other cases. Now in Trinidad and Tobago, it is very difficult to find a job if you cannot get a police certificate of good character, as you would know. So we, as a recruitment agency and in our partnership with COSTAT, have to find creative ways to convince employers to hire and give these young people, many of them are young, in their 20s, a second chance. So I am here today making a public appeal through the TTCSI, and I want to say thanks. Lorraine reached out to me already to offer support for you to think about how you may like to, in a small way, make a tangible difference. If you offer one former prisoner a job, if we each offered one formerly incarcerated person a job. That would go a long way to reducing recidivism, to building their self-esteem, to helping them become productive members of society. And not just, you know, mowing your lawn. We had a conversation about providing them with, one of my clients has a restaurant, and we had a conversation about whether we should give them knives or not. It's not really the kind of conversation I wanted to have, but they need opportunities. We need to give them a second chance. I believe if we as employers, private sector, the services sector, really put our hearts and minds into that, we can make a dent in crime. So I just want to publicly appeal to all of you, please, to reach out to us or to COSTAT and become part of the solution. Thank you.
Any questions from the floor?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lorraine Pouchet, Director of TTCSI, President of the Tour Operators Association of Trinidad and Tobago. I represent that organization through my husband's company, tourism company, Enjoy Tours. Now, the crime, I want to make a statement about the crime situation as it relates to tourism. We have another member of the association here, and I'm sure she will support me with this. What we have been getting is requests from groups coming in from abroad to have an armed security with them for the entire stay here. We have also been getting requests or cancellation of tours. For example, we have one member who does tarpon fishing. Trinidad and Tobago, if you all didn't know, is top class in the world for tarpon fishing. And they normally come down, the guys come down, they bring their wives, the wives go out on tour and so on. The last group that he had, they had to cancel because the wives say, no way, after those notifications that they are seeing from the different countries, are they coming to Trinidad. Because they are afraid they'll be raped, they are afraid they'll be robbed, they are afraid they will be murdered. So I just want to support the fact of what Dr. Axe is saying, that yes, we are looking at tourism as a possibility for diversification, but there's no chance, there's not a chance of a snow cone in hell for us to get tourism to come here if we don't get crime under control. We are seeing it, we are seeing the cancellations, and we are understanding exactly what is happening.
And if I may just kind of add on to what Lorraine just said, very often, apart from persons who are in the tourism sector, like Lorraine and others here, we think tourism is carnival. Tourism is so much more than carnival, and the way in which the tourism sector is evolving or has evolved over time, and the advent of Airbnbs and all of those things, the benefit from the increase in tourist arrivals for Carnival does not necessarily translate into something that will help in terms of our economic growth. We need to have an ecosystem that addresses issues of crime, that addresses tourist arrivals. The entire ecosystem, we need to have that sorted, and which is why I'm making the point that it's not simply about the TTPS. I have thoughts, but crime is not my area of subject matter expertise. But I do think that we really need to understand that this requires a whole of government approach. This requires a whole of Trinidad and Tobago approach in terms of addressing this issue, because at the end of the day, our country is going to suffer, and it's not any individual who's going to suffer. It is going to be that the fact is that what we have relied on for many decades, the energy sector, is no longer able to provide the kind of support for the foreseeable future, no longer able to provide the kind of support that we have enjoyed. And if we want to enjoy those little things like a large budget for the Ministry of Education, a large budget for the Ministry of National Security, a large budget for the Ministry of Health, etc., 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 we will not be able to do that because we simply will not have the financial resources because of all of the issues that have impacted on our economic growth.
All right, so we have time for one more question. I know we have two questions. Two quick questions, quick and sharp.
Well, actually, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jesse James, the Vice President of the Marine Services Association of Trinidad and Tobago. I wasn't so much going to ask a question, but comment on this particular sector. It's a diversification drive of the government with the economy, right? The Yacht Services Association industry. But we have a opportunity here right now, and my president and I, he said to make sure and relate to the persons here. Trinidad was given, I mean, we don't want to capitalize on Beryl, the hurricane that passed, and did the damage to the other islands, I think, but there were a lot of yachts that ran from that hurricane and ended up here in Trinidad. So naturally, we are a safe haven in Trinidad, but in the last 10 to 15 years, the last one was Ivan or so, people kind of forgot about that. And we went through a whole lot of, we have one side of the government trying to help, the Minister of Trade and Minister Gopi Schoon, hats off to her. We have a program, and Lorraine, I appreciate what you just said, we might need your help, where they have something called YMAP, taking young people to train them, to bring them and give them employment in the sector with all the different skills. It was kicked off, I don't know if some of you all saw it, so we have that program that the government set up. And like Laura said also, we need some help because the young people in that program, they really, really need help. And that will help with the crime situation too, if we could get to those people. So maybe, somehow, if we could ask for some assistance with that program. And also, we have an opportunity here in our hands in Chagaramas. If we allow this opportunity to slip away again, Madam Speaker, it will be a big failure again to Trinidad. And sometimes it's so easy to fix. It's not money we're asking for. It's facilitation by the different agencies, customs, immigration. Look, I have a phone call, I have to return a phone call to somebody here. They want authorization to collect a package for a spare part. The guy is quite in Sydney, in Australia. It's a normal thing to send authorization and so on, and you get the part. The lady, the custom officer told him the man have to FedEx the document. In a day and age where everybody's going electronic, this lady is telling him to FedEx it, or she will not release the spare part for him. A lot of different issues within the different agencies and governments that could simply be, worked out. And Mark would know, they've been helping us so much in the past couple of years, in all the different, things that we've been battling with. And it's so simple to fix. And the opportunities are there, Madam Speaker, with the economic...
If you call me that one more time, I'll put you out of the house, sir.
Sorry, respect, due respect. Anyway, I'll stop right there. And it's a conversation that we could continue going forward on this particular sector, right? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. James. Unfortunately, we have to move on the agenda, and I'd like to now thank the panel. For persons who do in fact have questions, feel free to approach the panelists at the mix and mingle segment of our conversation, or even at the end of the next panel's contribution. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank our panel, Dr. Marlene Atz, Mr. Dexter Simon, Mr. Thane Prince. Mr. Thane Pierre. Right. And I'll turn you back over to our Master of Ceremonies, CEO Darren Leasing.
Well, Dexter has a class at 5 p.m. So he's running outside, and we'll give him a little thank you as he goes. But I want to thank Thane Pierre and Dexter Simon. Thane immediately jumped at the chance to speak to us on positives. Crime is not always a negative thing, and we must see the positives that we could do, but we have to do it together. The case study of Dexter was an example to our membership, and we deliberately inserted it because we wanted you to understand that one man or one woman could take a gym, his bodybuilding experience, and turn it into a world-class export. That is the case study. So if he could do it, we can all do it. Dr. Atz, you stay. There's no break, guys. We're going straight into panel 2. And so at this time, allow me to invite the second moderator, another director of TTCSI, Mr. Kiran Singh of the Greater San Fernando Chamber.
Good afternoon. So we know we're running a bit late, so we want to move right into the introduction of the second set of presenters, panelists. We will be having a short Q&A session after all the presentations of the second session. And we would just want to remind the presenters as we introduce and invite them on stage to please keep our contributions a bit tight. I mean, in the interest of time, we had some challenging weather patterns to deal with on our way here this afternoon. So, I have to take off my glasses, sorry, they're not working good to read. So, the first presenter I would like to introduce to come on stage is Emerson John Charles, President of the Innovation Association of Trinidad and Tobago. Please have a seat. The second speaker, no stranger to us, of course, is Angela Leloy, Chairman of the Aegis Business Solutions Company. And the third speaker, Dr. Dakari Dex Driver, Dax, President and CEO of the Energy Chamber of Trinidad and Tobago. And of course, Dr. Atz will maintain her presence on stage to guide the conversation as we end the second session this evening. Have a seat, Dax. That's fine. I'll sit right here. So we would go right into it and ask Emerson to jump into his presentation. You can sit.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm just waiting for my PowerPoint to be uploaded. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm just waiting for my PowerPoint to be uploaded, but thank you very much for the opportunity to address you. Okay, so just a very brief introduction about myself. I'm the Chief Architect of the Draft National Innovation Policy of Trinidad and Tobago. I'm one of the only two ISO innovation experts in the Caribbean. I'm the chair of the National Innovation Committee with the Bureau of Standards, and as you know, I'm the chair of the Innovation Association. Mark. So a brief information on the Innovation Association. We are new on the block, and the Innovation Association is the hub for innovation professionals and practitioners in the country, and we are the advocates for all things innovation. That's innovation policies, innovation standards. And we have quite a diverse board. We have a senior lecturer of intellectual property at UWI. We have a director from the Ministry of Public Admin, as well as a C-suite executive from Digicel Group. So why is innovation important? I will ask you to ask certain people who seem to be pushing innovation in the country. Ask Agostini Group why they have invested in an innovation lab and developed an innovation portfolio with a lot of ideas moving forward. Ask them why they have relatively recently, had an innovation summit with key executives from different companies within their group. And they have realized from 2022 to 2023 an increase in their after-tax profit of over 64% to $313 million, and that's a growth of almost $200 million in profit in just 1 year. You could also ask Carib Brewery why they have in positions such as innovation manager, innovation specialist. And we see that they recently opened a smart factory. We see that they have continued with their growth. And that is because innovation is really the source of competitive advantage today. But the issue that we have is that many organizations don't know how to manage. Next slide. The issue that we have in Trinidad is that we really don't know how to manage innovation, and we really don't know how to set up an innovation management system. But fortunately, very recently, the world had its first requirement standard for innovation, the ISO 56001. And it was as soon as last week, Tuesday, was published. Unfortunately, through the Bureau of Standards, we have started the process to adopt that international standard as Trinidad's national innovation standard. So most people, when they think of innovation, you see the center of the diagram there, they think of identifying an idea, identifying an opportunity, developing a concept, deploying a concept, but to ensure that you are continuously increasing your innovative capabilities, so that you can ensure that your organization is constantly creating new products and services and processes. You have to have a management system in place. You have to ensure you have context, leadership, planning, and all those additional things that you're seeing there. Because innovation by itself will just die within an organization. So this is an example. So when we say clause 5, what does innovation leadership mean? Because if I ask a lot of organizations in Trinidad, are you innovative? They're quick to say yes, they're quick to use it as a buzzword. But now we could say, here's the checklist, there's a guiding framework. Do you, leadership, have an innovation policy in place, innovation strategy, innovation culture, and the other metrics that go along with it? So this is really a game changer for firms that want to boost their innovation, and we are hoping that with the budget that the government provides support for organizations that want to invest and create one. So next slide. So the ISO 56001 is based, has fundamental 8 innovation management principles, which includes having future-focused leaders, having a culture that allows employees to exploit insights and manage uncertainty and manage risk. So if you want to do innovation, these are the type of things that you want to have within your organization. And I need to mention that any organization, no matter its size and its type, can have an innovation management system. So that includes universities, public sector, and public sector organizations. So moving away from managing innovation from the level of the firm to managing innovation from a country, there have been a lot of reports and research to how we could diversify the economy via innovation. And there was a final report called the Implementation Strategy for Centers of Excellence, and they identified 5 key areas, economic areas, that we can diversify the economy and have a competitive advantage abroad. And you're seeing high-value agricultural products, aviation services, maritime services, ICT products and services, energy engineering services, and of course TTCSI. You have noticed how many times I've mentioned services. So we're hoping you could be on board for the government to provide funding for us to create these innovation centers. And what is a center of excellence? A center of excellence is a place that brings academia and private sector together to ensure that so that innovation projects could be de-risked. And it's a place where, next slide. And it is a place where we can boost various sectors in each space. So for example, for the ICT center, you're seeing there we have fintech, cybersecurity, you have artificial intelligence, energy-based digital solutions. These are things that if we start with, but if we start innovating them, we can export. But where we are right now, we just started having the conversations with each of the 5, with key stakeholders in each of these 5 micro ecosystems to try and decide where we should get this started. So if you are interested in joining the Innovation Association, this work, please reach out to us. And centers of excellence are not new in Trinidad, and we actually have an example in the Cocoa Research Center, and they get 82% of their funding from the private sector. And I was surprised to know that it's the largest cocoa and chocolate companies in the world that fund them. And why is it that we don't have more local companies understanding the power of an innovation center? And to me, if, as it says there, almost 20% of the funding comes from the government, it means the government of Trinidad and Tobago is subsidizing a lot of the efforts of these big global companies. And whose interests will this Cocoa Research Center really follow? Next slide. So just to wrap up, I would like to invite you to the Innovation Association's webinar on Friday at 10 a.m. It's free. It goes into detail on the, of course, I say they unlock the power of our innovation management system. Some of our speakers, we have the VP of Innovation at Phoenix Park Processors there. We have the Director of Modernization in the Ministry of Public Admin, and we have an intellectual attorney as well as myself. So thank you very much.
We'd like to thank Ms. Snow once again for that insightful presentation on innovation. I'm sure Dr. Atz will have something to say about that. This is certainly something very exciting for us here in Trinidad and Tobago, and it's much needed in our economic challenges that we face. Moving on to the second presenter, Angela, who will be speaking on Trinidad and Tobago's economic outlook. And of course, we'll be very interested to hear what she has to say. Thanks.
Good afternoon. Are you hearing me? Right. Well, you're going to be very disappointed if he thinks I have the answer to the economic thing. You can't help it when you're short, right? It comes with the territory. You okay? Just lock it in. Oh. Don't worry. Once you could hear me. Hopefully, yeah. But you know, I think we're so jumbled up there, so I thought maybe I should. But if I want, can use that mic, right? I can use the mic. Hello? Fine? Good? Right. That's already 1 minute of my time that's gone. I actually was told I only have 5 minutes, so I don't know how they're being so generous. So the thing about it is, the question is transforming business in the current economic environment. Well, I will tell you what I really feel transforms is a human capital. It's a human capital. Because at the end of the day, the people you have, the creativity, the ability to innovate, everything that we spoke about today is really true human capital. Yes, technology and all of that is important, but that's just an enabler. If you don't have the people that could think for you, create for you, really the business is not going to survive with whatever. So the important thing for me in transforming business is you have to be agile. Agility and innovation is important. That's, people have mentioned of COVID. I think that has forced us to move faster than we would have in the past. I would say when we were already looking at work from home as a policy, and so we were already checking everybody's internet connection. So when it was said that it's now a pandemic, we were able to close our office the next day because we knew where everybody was internet-wise. We only had 2 people out of 80-something people that did not have the correct internet connection. So what we simply did is we hotspot them, and everybody was to be virtual. What I did do then, I didn't sell any furniture. I consigned. I said, do you need a desk? Do you need a chair? Do you need a printer? Do you whatever? Everybody has a computer. So home you go with all. If you decide to leave me, you just bring it back. I didn't have to worry about what I'm selling to who, to what, or whatever. Now we're back in, so like, you know, it works. The other thing I think was important, and I think they've spoken enough about digital transformation, and I think having these online platforms makes you very competitive, as we've seen already, but it really deserves a mindset shift in terms of being able to reach clients in a more efficient way. In fact, I had a meeting today and I said to the client, would you like to meet in person or virtual? Angela, we wanted virtual because, you know what, they're in the east or in the west, so they're thinking all this traffic and the weather, let's meet virtually. So while that is important to have the platforms and so on, again, we're seeing that it's also cut your cost operationally. I mean, the fact that you could just virtually meet has helped. I think Dax is going to really talk about a fantastic area, which is the incentives for green innovation, because I really think that's very important. I think also the fact that we have infrastructure and connectivity, invest in ICT, that has been mentioned. I'm just going to go through if I feel I need to hit on something other than that we've mentioned enough. And diversifying the economy beyond oil and gas. So we've mentioned the problem we have in tourism, but it is something, technology, creating new opportunities for service providers. Now, one of the things I think most businesses need, and we need in Trinidad, is foreign exchange. It's a killer. The amount of companies or businesses I know have had to close simply because they cannot access the foreign exchange to continue It's a killer. I don't know at what point we'll ever get out of that. But I think then everybody who has a business has to sit down and put their minds to, what am I going to do to create that foreign exchange? So some of the things, and it has been mentioned, is really targeting international clients. Expand your base of services can be delivered remotely. We've seen it. I think most people right now, at least for me, I do have clients outside of Trinidad and Tobago. I do have clients, therefore, where I can earn the foreign exchange because they're outside of here. Another thing would be to look at some of the platforms that you can use. For example, we know TTCSI has a national exporters platform. We have the Global Chamber. We have Google business profile pages. We have things out there that we could use as platforms to get ourselves there, get known, and get business. I think you need to really focus on the high demand niche markets. Look at what can you specialize in? Specialized IT, financial consulting. Get to be an expert in whatever field you're in and sell it. That is what it's all about. So you can create expertise. I mean, everybody could sit down and think, what can I do? What can I do better? What can I create? And I think that is what you need to do. I mean, when COVID came, one of the things, of course, was, you know, the virtual annual meeting, okay? So I have corporate services. So I say, okay, guys and girls, how are we doing this? Find out what we need to do. Get out there and sell it that you can do it. So, yes, we have done a couple of public companies, banks and so on, but it was pushing your people to think that you could need and create a service. One of the other things I also would say is have international partnerships. There was a time when I decided, you know what? Mandate. Get international partnership. That's your job. And that has certainly helped. I am also part of international networks, and those truly help you. But to show you the extent at which these international partnerships can help you, I'm a member of a network, and that network was able, a company called Vialto, which is a former Pricewaterhouse firm, all they did was international mobility payrolls. And then PwC was no longer doing that. So those people who used to do it moved away and formed a company called Vialto. Not everybody from PwC came or joined. And they went to the network I was in, and they needed somebody in the Caribbean. And I was recommended. So you know what? I do international mobility payroll for all the oil companies in Trinidad and Tobago and throughout the Caribbean, because I have the network throughout the Caribbean. That's amazing. And that is totally foreign currency. Totally. That's all they do. They bill you in US. You have to bill in US dollars. So I'm saying to say, this is what you can do. Also, the thing about it is you get their expertise. There's no two ways about it. They have the best networks out there. They're spending the money to do things faster and better. So again, I'm a member of ADP, which is the largest payroll provider in the world. So I go to their thing, and one of the things I found out, besides the fact that they train my people, which is wonderful, they also give us the point where they have something called work vacations. So you want to go on vacation somewhere? Right. Why don't you work there and have a vacation? I can go in their office, you get to meet people there, and that's it. My time is up, I think, so I could finish right here. Not so? I don't think I need to go into too much other than that. And then what I'm simply saying is learn to export your services. Export your services and attend international conferences. That's it.
Thank you, Angela. Another interesting discussion here this evening. I'm sure she could have gone on for a couple hours as well, but time is unfortunately not on our side this evening, but we certainly enjoyed it, and I'm sure we could get some more information through the Q&A session, and of course, Dr. Atz will inform us more on the topic. And now we invite Dax, Dr. Driver, to give us his presentation.
Good afternoon, everybody. I think I was asked to talk about the potential for a green economy. I think in most countries, if the CEO of the chamber representing the oil and gas industry stood up to talk about the green economy, there'd probably be a riot. But things are a little different here in Trinidad and Tobago. So I'm going to talk about 4 things I think we need to focus, that a company needs to focus on, 4 reasons to have a green focus, and then there's 4 things I wanted just to say about advocacy, because it's a pre-budget presentation. So in terms of 4 reasons why companies should have a green focus, first one, that your customers expect it. This is increasingly the case. I think that you just have customers who want to have more environmentally friendly products. And that's particularly if you're servicing export markets, because I think that there's many markets around the world which have clear expectations. And also if you are servicing regulated sectors where they have targets to reduce their carbon footprint. So for example, the marine sector, IMO has lots of regulations now about reducing the carbon footprint of fuels. So you've got to meet those requirements. So that's the first thing, that expectation of your customers. That is absolutely crucial, creates a lot of opportunities. So Trinidad, so if you take the marine issue, we have a big opportunity now in low carbon marine fuels because of that expectations of the customers. So that's the first reason to have a green focus. Second reason is that it helps you reduce your costs and increase your efficiency. Most commercial businesses in Trinidad and Tobago are incredibly energy inefficient. They waste energy. Air conditioning systems are badly installed, people leave doors open, people leave lights on. Most businesses can reduce their electricity costs by 40% just by implementing the most simple energy efficiency program. So focusing on your environmental footprint helps you reduce your costs. If you move to an electric vehicle from having a diesel or gasoline vehicles, it'll reduce your costs. Your maintenance costs on an electric vehicle is minuscule compared to your maintenance costs on a diesel engine. So these are just a good reason to put that focus. Reduce the waste, reduce the amount of paper that you use in the office will help your efficiency. So Andrew told the story about how they had, how Aegis was ready to go to working from home because they had put their systems in place. We had a very similar experience just because we put a target into use no paper in the office the year before. So everyone had gone digital. We said no paper, we're not using any paper in the office. And that meant when COVID came, we were all ready to go digital. We didn't have paper, we didn't need to be in the office. We had one process still where some of our people who we had to sign off documents for because of customs regulations, we had to have one paper-based process. Everything else was digital. It also makes our auditing easier as well, when you just are auditors. But, so just that focus on the environment can help you reduce your costs. Third reason, your employees are usually more happy in a company which has an environmental focus. People, particularly young people, particularly, we have a lot of problems with of attracting the skills we need. You want to attract and retain skilled young people. Company has an environmental focus. People are more likely to like to work for you, and you have better retention. Finally, fourth reason, finance. There are finance windows available for companies who are implementing environmental projects. Republic Bank has a huge financing window available for that. First Citizens do as well. It's just an obvious way that there's financing available locally. And of course, internationally for bigger projects, there's a lot available as well. But even for smaller projects locally, there's financing available for environmentally friendly investments. So those are the 4 reasons. Your customers expect it. It helps you reduce your costs. Your employees are happier. And it's easy to access financing. So 4 simple things. In terms of the budget now, I have 4 things. 3 of them I would like TTCSI to agree with. The 4th one I just want you all not to disagree with me too much about. The three to agree with, the feed-in tariff. This is something which has been talked about for a decade, or more than a decade, in fact. This is just to allow people to attach small-scale solar systems to the grid. It's an obvious thing to do. It's a big help for the country. Really, it should just happen. The government has promised that it's going to happen. It hasn't happened yet. We just need to keep pushing and say, where is the feed-in tariff legislation to allow people to attach small-scale solar systems to the grid? Simple. Second one is, there's a tax credit which exists since 2010 for companies to implement energy efficiency audits. In the year since 2010 that this tax credit has existed, there's a sum total of 0 companies who have accessed the tax credit. That is because the tax credit exists if you do an energy efficiency with an energy service company certified by the Ministry of Energy. And the Ministry of Energy has no way to certify energy service companies, so there's no company certified, so therefore you cannot access the tax credit. So TTCSI, with your role, your services task force, just impress on the government that you don't need a ministry to certify companies as energy service companies. It doesn't happen anywhere else in the world. You have the trade associations do that. Okay? Simple. Third one, a little bit more complicated now, the Green Fund. There's $10 billion in the Green Fund, which all businesses have been paying into over a long period of time. 300 million of that has ever been accessed. So the concept of the Green Fund is a great concept. Businesses put money into it and NGOs implement environmental projects, except that's not happening. So what we're advocating is that the portion of that green fund you turn into a carbon levy. So the large emitters of CO2, instead of them paying the green fund levy, they'll pay a carbon levy, and then allow them to implement carbon reduction investments and get a rebate against future payments into this carbon levy. It's a simple, we're going to have to work, it sounds simple, actually it's quite complicated, but it's something which I think is just a good idea, and again I look to TTCSI to support. The fourth one, which I don't know if I'm going to get anybody to support, except perhaps our moderator, the discussant might support me on this. We've got to be realistic that we have to remove the subsidy on electricity in the country. Natural gas is subsidizing. We're putting incredibly cheap natural gas into the electricity sector, which we could be earning a lot more forex for if we put it into the petrochemical sector and the LNG sector. We need to remove that subsidy. It'll help drive energy efficiency. An increased rate does not mean a higher bill if you implement energy efficiency policies. As I said before, there's a 40% reduction that most businesses can make to their electricity bill. So you could increase the price by 40% without it actually impacting your current bottom line if you implement those policies. Leave the subsidy in place for the poorest households. There's a good reason to subsidize electricity for the poorest households, but better off households in the top tariff levels do not need an electricity subsidy, and businesses, commercial businesses, should be paying the market rate for the natural gas. Still means we'll have very cheap electricity compared to the rest of the region, but it'll reflect what the true cost is. So I'm not looking for people to support that idea, just not oppose it too strongly. Okay, so those are my 4 points. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Driver, for that great presentation. I just want to make one brief comment. I was enjoying the presentation until I heard something about removing the subsidy from the electricity and natural gas and something about that, and I know Dr. Atz is going to go to town on that. I think that if I could just add my 2 cents into this conversation, that we understand the whole electrical supply debate in Trinidad and Tobago, and that electricity rates are quite low in the Western Hemisphere in Trinidad and Tobago. We understand that. But we're also aware of many large corporations that owe TNTech many millions of dollars. And how are they going about collecting on those debts before going after residential and commercial customers to increase their rates? I will leave that for Dr. Atz to address, and thank you all as she brings the session to a close with her comments, and then we'll have a brief Q&A after that. Thank you very much. Dr. Atz.
Well, Kiran, I'm not too sure if I want to thank you for anything. You and Dax only start only bacchanal and then say Dr. Atz is going to address that. I wasn't there at the beginning. I don't understand why I'm there at the end. But not going to look at these specifics because, I mean, Dax and I have had professional conversations about the electricity rates and the fact that we do have a hole in the national economic space in terms of the natural gas and whether or not we are using our resources in the best possible way that can bring us the returns. But that is, I appreciate that that is a wider conversation to be had because there will be implications for business. So I'm not going to get myself ensnared in that. But I will say, however, that we need to have national conversations on what is the architecture required for us to swing the pendulum. What Dax is referring to in terms of green energy and efficiencies. So people would have been nodding their heads wisely up until he talked about, you know, businesses benefiting from the efficiencies and Angela talking about work from home. And they say, you know, that makes sense, you know, no paper, and everybody be nodding their heads. But when it comes to a conversation around electricity, people get very kind of standoffish, and it is understandable because I think in the wider national space, we're not having the requisite conversations about how do we swing the pendulum from non-renewables. So everybody inside of here know that we're very heavily dependent on oil and gas. But the conversation has to swing because internationally, the conversation has swung. And Trinidad and Tobago, we're still holding on to something that we've grown very accustomed to and very comfortable with in terms of the energy conversation. But one of the things I thought Dax might introduce in his 4 pointers was something called CBAM, which is going to bite countries like Trinidad and Tobago in a very serious way in parts that we don't wish to be bitten. Because CBAM is the carbon something, 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 is a tax, carbon border adjustment mechanism, which says essentially if you are producing, manufacturing products that use a lot of energy, that impact on the environment, and you export them, people are going to have to pay more for your products. So what is going to happen? You think they want to buy your products? All right. So we need to start to have those conversations and those learnings at the national level, and occasions such as these are important for us to start saying, well, all right, how is that going to impact on us as a country? How is that going to impact on my business? And what kind of regulatory framework, what kind of infrastructure, and what kind of architecture is required to support me as I navigate this space that is unknown. So in terms of what Dax presented, the feed-in tariff, you know, I smile because for my sins, I have worked on many of these things in previous lives. I have at least 9 lives. I have worked on some of these things, including things like the deposit refund scheme that is languishing somewhere in some ministry. When I was a younger academic, I would have provided support in terms of some of the initial work done in these areas. And it is a lamentation that we're still having those conversations. Now, the feed-in tariff, from an economic perspective, I think we need to manage that because the persons who can afford to put in solar panels are probably the people who are going to benefit the most. And we need to manage that kind of dichotomy in terms of how we're going to ensure that the benefits from the feed-in tariff actually accrue to those persons who need that support the most, because the average low-income person probably is not going to want to spend money. They wouldn't spend money now on an LED light, so they're probably not going to spend money on a solar panel so that they can feed into the feed-in tariff. So there requires some finessing of the architecture to get us to where we need to be in terms of those conversations. I loved Angela's point. We need to think outside of the box. I hear many business persons, and I have many friends who are business persons, Kieran among them, lamenting they can't get Forex. Now, I think the Forex challenge, let's break it down. The energy sector is where we get the most of the Forex from. And what did I say a couple of minutes ago? The energy sector is in decline in terms of government revenue. So if you're earning it, then where it coming from? The government's debt to GDP ratio is about 72%. Government has to pay foreign debt as well. Foreign debt is not paid in TT dollars. So the Forex that we have has to go towards that. We want to keep healthy reserves so that ever so often the central bank can draw on our reserves and put them into the commercial space so that you could go and get your 500 US to go on holidays, or so that you could swipe your credit card. All of these things are related. So when we're lamenting the Forex, there is part of the solution is for us as entrepreneurs, as business persons, as people involved in the services sector, to identify ways in which we can earn foreign exchange. So I know people who are involved in garment manufacturing, they're local designers and stuff, and they have their local market, but they also have an international market. They've gone to Barbados, they've gone overseas, they're earning foreign exchange to ease the burden, because we need to understand, and every time we go into the large places, I don't want to call people's name in this public forum, and we spend money when we pick up certain kinds of products, that's foreign exchange. You might be swiping your credit card and paying 3,000 TT dollars, but that is really not 3,000 TT dollars. That's a lot of foreign exchange. So when you go to the bank to ask for your 500 US, you've already used up your quota in places where you swipe your card and spend $3,000. When you buy your cars, that's foreign exchange. When we have to import goods and services, that's foreign exchange. And while I appreciate the angst that our businesses face, we have collectively to understand that we are also part of the solution. Let's find different ways, which is where developing local capacity for exporting is so important. When you export, you earn foreign exchange. So we thank the Ministry of Trade for helping us unclog some of the arteries to help us export, but there's still more to be done. It's not only up to the Ministry of Trade. When you have to go to BIR or somewhere else to get some kind of form that's required, and they tell you, well, you know, the system down, the printer down. All of these things, we really need a whole of government approach to help us extricate ourselves from the space in which we find ourselves. The innovation, and I heard Emerson talk about the National Innovation Policy, and again I smile because for my sins I used to be a member of the Economic Development Advisory Board. And back in 2016 this is something that we worked on, and Emerson highlighted Agustin and Carib, and I smiled again because the private sector finds a way to do what they need to do because the private sector is in the business of making money. They're waiting on nobody. They find ways to do what they need to do because their bottom line depends on reinventing themselves. And you could say what you want, and there'll be people in the audience who'll be saying, well, you know, the names you called them is part of the whatever percent you want to call it. But they cannot afford to not be in the business of innovation and reinventing themselves because their bottom line depends on it. Emerson made a call for the budget to provide support for innovation, and I had to smile. Because again, for my sins, in 2016, 2017, you spoke about the National Innovation Policy. I was part of that. And there was a very clear recommendation in that document, the National Innovation Policy, that says, why not use 1 or 2% of the interest from the Heritage and Stabilization Fund to put into a National Innovation Policy? A National Innovation Fund, sorry, so that we can support local entrepreneurs who want to innovate and who want to become entrepreneurs and who want to be part of this national innovation ecosystem. That was 2016, my arithmetic not too good, but I think that was 8 years ago. In 2024, we're having the same conversation. Because innovation we treat as something where you click your heels. Innovation has to be embedded in our education system. We need to understand. Have you ever looked at a 3-year-old? I have a 3-year-old goddaughter. And I think she's the most wonderfulest thing in the world. But she did something the other day and I had to smile, and her mother, I know, would not be happy. But she went to use the bathroom and she locked herself in the bathroom because the mother left all of her makeup there because she said, eh? She said, now I have a chance. And she innovated in the bathroom. And it's when the mother realized, but wait, I've not seen her for about 50 minutes, you're not hearing her. And she knocked on the door and she asked her to unlock the door. She unlocked the door and there was makeup everywhere. She innovated. We have a generation of young persons now who come out of the womb wanting, yearning to innovate. And we are frustrating them, or we can frustrate them, if we don't provide them with the ecosystem and the support to allow them to be the innovators. They ain't gonna be innovators when they finish university. You know, by the time they finish university, them done stuck in the ways. I have students, when I ask, well, why are you doing this degree? Well, they get a good work in the public service. And I'm kind of like, shake my head because I was there a couple decades ago. People still do that? So if we want to talk about innovation, it has to be embedded in our psyche. And part of embedding it in our collective psyche is embedding it in our education system, with a government simply providing that support. So there is a conversation and there is a document that speaks to a National Innovation Fund, being funds coming from 1 or 2% interest from the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. Not a whole lot of money, but if you keep putting that into the system, you encourage people And let me tell you what happens. You encourage them, they innovate, they become entrepreneurs, they start to export, they start to earn foreign exchange, and we have economic growth. Economic growth is not a click your heels. It's not you click your heels and you know the economy will grow. We have to be part and parcel of that system, but we have to understand all of the constituent parts and the roles that we can play as individuals or collectively to get our economy to grow. And I'm going to stop there before Kiran stops me.
Let's thank our presenters once again for that very insulating conversation. I just want to ask Dr. Hatch one private question before we... Well, by the way, we inviting persons for the Q&A. The microphone is at the middle, or we have a floating mic. Mark is walking around. So while the First Lady is going to ask a question, I want to ask Dr. Hatch privately which bank she going to for the 500 US, because when I go to the bank, I only get in 2. So I don't know which bank is that.
You really want us to go down that road, Kiran? Which credit card do you have? How much credit card do you have? You want me to talk your business?
First question.
There was a young lady from the first round, and then she still wants to ask her question.
Good afternoon, all. I'm here in the capacity of the league. I'm a director of the league board. My question to Emerson. I know you spoke about collaboration, ideation, implementation, and value creation, right? All those are enhancement of the innovation. My question is, what technique is used for innovation to see if it fits a brand, the brand, or any brand?
Okay, when it comes to innovation, many organizations like to have like one big bet. And they say, okay, we have this particular idea and we are moving forward with it. But what you want to do is to do a set of very small experiments. And so you want to do them very quickly. So normally you hear like in Silicon Valley, people speak about failing fast and failing small. So that's what you want to do. And as in the diagram, in the innovation management system, in the center, you saw the first thing is identifying opportunities, deploying, developing concepts, testing concepts. So every time you're moving along each one of those parts to get your final project that you want to scale, there are metrics that you could have there as evidence as this thing has potential. So by the time you're ready to scale, you have evidence that this thing possibly could work. And when you go through that whole process, part of that whole situation is ensuring that you're iterative, that you have to go back. So that's how I would suggest that you develop your brands.
And if I can just be so bold to jump into that, you mustn't be afraid to fail, because failure is part and parcel of the process. And I think people often think that, you get a bright idea and you take off one time and you're successful. Innovation is not something like that. Innovation requires you to go back to the drawing board and tweak, and it requires some fortitude.
Next question, please.
Hi. My name is Kalika Clark. I'm with the chamber as well as a small business owner. My question goes back, and I wouldn't say such a question, but it goes back to crime and the education. And we're talking about these youths between the ages of 15 and 35. I think it starts before that, and I think it's a social issue. It starts at home, right? It's more social issue, and I think we should put a little bit of focus on social as well as to deal with the crime situation, basically.
I'm not a criminologist, and I would defer to my colleague from the first panel, but I absolutely agree with you. And within recent times, I find myself, I don't know how many people here are old enough to remember when former Police Commissioner Hercules was killed. Don't try that. Only put up all your hand. Don't try that. Nobody putting up their hand. You remember that? Yes, okay. Everybody here kind of like, what's she talking about? When he was murdered, the mother of the young man came out publicly and said he didn't go to kill nobody, he just went to rob. And that was 20 plus years ago, could be more. And that for me was the indicator that as a country, we needed to take control of what was happening at that time. His mother came out, I don't know if she's still alive, but I found it a very disturbing statement. He didn't go to kill, he went to rob, and she came out publicly and she said that. And I think it is relevant to the point that you're making, that it's not when they become perpetrators at age 15, but it's the old adage, charity begins at home. So I totally agree with you. I don't know if our colleague from the first panel, if he's in the front, if you can.
Good afternoon again. I am in full agreement with what is said, and just to reiterate the point, crime and fighting crime is a whole of government approach on one side, but it goes back to the plinth of what I was saying, where we all need to take stock and have some sort of interest in moving it forward. And let me take this opportunity to commend the writers for the initiative. I think that went understated, the impact that that is going to have, and I think it's a very commendable initiative. And those are the type of involvement that the community, the service industries need to get involved in. Mentorship, and really assist people, because you are asking parents, some parents, they themselves need assistance being parents. So you cannot expect them to impart upon their children what they themselves do not know. Thank you.
Question? One more question from Raymond.
Hi guys, good afternoon again. I am a market research practitioner, and what pains me every day is the absence of data, be it for crime, be it for the green economy, because we talk ESG and you're not seeing data that encourages business, and we're still using CSO poverty data from 2011 to make decisions in 2024, which is a huge discrepancy. In the absence of data and real data, how are policymakers, and I'm talking on a business hat now, how are business decision makers expected to talk about the work from home? Because we talk about the work from home policy ad infinitum after the pandemic, but no study was commissioned. And then we hear now, for example, just today, Amazon is saying all its employees have to come back out to work 5 days a week. So different policies, you realize the central theme and the central gap in our economy or in our country is the lack of data, which, if you're talking ease of doing business, if you're talking economic indicators, if you're talking innovation, where is that central repository of data when we have a CSO that is being infinitely rebranded, infinitely restructured, and we still don't have the data we need to make decisions?
And I will take a first blush, and I suspect my other colleagues. You're absolutely right. I was in touch with the CSO up to yesterday trying to get some data, and it's not yet available, because in the last budget, the Minister of Finance promised that we would have the household budgetary survey and the survey of living conditions, and I was told that it's not yet available, and it's not going to be available perhaps until the end of the year. Another set of data that I think would be instructive, coming back to the conversation we had about crime, is what happened to our school children during COVID-19. We have this conversation about the transition to online. And every time someone says that, I feel a pain in parts of me where I shouldn't be feeling pain. Because I think fast forward to 2024, what we're seeing in some of those statistics, the 15 and the 16 and the 17-year-olds, is because they dropped out of school and there was nothing to understand the circumstances that led to them dropping out of school. We're seeing the teenage pregnancies, and there was nothing to help us understand what were the gaps that we needed to close and we needed to fill, so that we could in some sense mitigate where we are now in 2024. So I fully endorse, I no longer even refer to the 2012 poverty studies, because I think that's a little bit of an embarrassment for me as a professional to stand and make reference to that. But I fully endorse it, and I think the challenge, I would say, as a professional with not having the data is that we will then be forced to make data-driven decisions, and I think there is a reluctance to make data-driven decisions, and that is perhaps one of the greatest reasons why, in my professional opinion, that we're not seeing the kinds of data, because it's not rocket science. If you have a problem, then the data will help you identify how to use the scarce resources that you have to make an appropriate intervention. Those seem complex, but if you don't have the data, then you would simply be throwing money around and you will talk about how much money that you spent on X, Y, and Z without admitting that having spent all of that money, remember my first point, return on investment, you're not getting the return on the investment that you'd like to have. So that's my first response to that, yeah?
In the innovation space, there's an index called the Global Innovation Index, which Trinidad has been doing terribly in, dropping consistently. So we were 68th in the world in 2008, and last year we were like 103. And it's coming out in a few weeks. I expect that we're going to drop again. But Curie had an event last year trying to figure out where the data from this Global Innovation Index comes from. And after all of the discussions, up to now we still don't know. I think one of the issues is that into our innovation ecosystem, we don't have like an international innovation agency that strategically coordinates and manages our innovation ecosystem, so we could be able to gather that data. And no ministry also has an innovation division or innovation department that will be also have a place to manage, to capture that information. Because no one has that mandate. And there are innovation metrics in terms of you can measure innovations in households, in the informal sector, of course firms, the state, but no one has that responsibility. So if we could get that done, that would be a game changer for innovation in Trinidad and Tobago.
Dax, yes. I just wanted to make one point about availability of data, because I mean, of course, not disagreeing with any of the comments which have been made, and it is a major problem. But I think that there's also increasingly proxy data sets which you can access. So the GIS data on the mapping, which is all available, very you can get this available from satellite imagery. A lot of that data, I think the university need to sort of change its mindset sometimes around what data you need for research, because you can actually access it from different sources than the traditional sources. So you can see what's happening with changes of household by GIS data. So in the energy sector now, we are identifying where leaks of methane are from satellite data. Okay? So that's the new data sets which are available. You can monitor it remotely from satellite data, and it helps you then target where there might be a pipeline leak, or you have oil wells which are venting methane. So these are sort of things which are available, and I think that there's a lot of, through just the proxy data which you get from people's phones, that you actually find out a lot about what's going on in the country. And I think we need to sort of almost shift the mindset sometimes about what the sources of data that we're going to use, and not just sit back and say, well, CSOs doesn't give us the data we need, and look for other ways to get the data from other sources. Angela?
Basically what Dak said is right. I mean, in the finance field, you do have access to international information, and of course you would use those benchmarks, but you'll also modify by what you sort of know is going on in the marketplace. So, I would say, like everything else, you need to sit down and think. It's not to say you can't get it. You might get it perfectly, but you will get something that you can work with.
Thank you, Angela. We would like to say thank you to the presenters and the great audience that we have had this evening. Please don't leave just yet. We want to ask Tain to join us on stage. And I'm going to hand back over to the Master of Ceremonies, Darren, Acting CEO, to continue this evening's proceedings. We could clap now, please.
Folks, rain, sun, or shine, fun times. We're doing it a little unorthodox. Presenters, please stay. But at this time, I'm trying to make it all cohesive. So at this time, we're going to hop and launch the magazine. And so at this time, I would like to invite back to the podium the president of the TTCSI, Diane Joseph.
Good afternoon again. I am going to be very quick in declaring this magazine officially launched, but before I do that, I think I owe thanks to our former CEO who started the work on this exercise in getting the magazine out and continued with Darren Leasing, our current CEO, our former CEO, that's Ms. Vashti Gayadeen. And now we have Darren taking up the mantle along with his staff and the graphic artists and everyone else to bring it to this stage. So ladies and gentlemen, it gives me pleasure as president of the Trinidad and Tobago Coalition of Services Industries to officially launch our Guide to Doing Business with the World magazine, a focus on trade in services. I would now like to call on our Deputy PS to receive a copy to take back to our line minister, Honorable Paula Gopisky. Okay, and this basket is for you, our PS, for making the effort to be here with us today. Thank you so much for joining us at the TTCSI. Enjoy everything that is in there.
Folks, the MC's work is not done yet. At this time, I would like to invite our secretary to the board, Director Bushell, to do the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. What an informative and interesting afternoon we have had thus far. Don't you agree? Thank you as well for your patience throughout. I know we had a late start and you all are still here with us in full. We appreciate that. So let me first recognize our Deputy PS, Acting Ms. Eva Mahabir Das, and our President, Ms. Diane Joseph. All other protocols observed. It is indeed a pleasure for me to deliver closing remarks at this very important event, the pre-budget discussion and official launch of TTCSI's magazine, or what we also consider our first edition podcast and pre-budget discussion. So we have streaming going on simultaneously. While we are here, we have persons on media following us on Facebook, radio, and so on. So it is indeed an innovation for TTCSI in this time. I'd like to thank our President, Ms. Diane Joseph, for her strong leadership and continued diligent work on behalf of the TTCSI. I also extend thanks to Director Lorraine Pouchet for her moving invocation at the start of the afternoon's proceedings. To our Acting CEO, Mr. Leasing, you are clearly standing up to the task that we have ascribed to you. We ask you to keep doing what you must do, utilizing our Secretariat for the benefit of our membership. I assure you that we, as the board, will support your endeavors in this regard. To the Acting Deputy PS, Ms. Mahabir Das, we feel blessed to have you here and for your remarks. We ask you to kindly share our sentiments with our Honorable Minister, Paula Gopi-Skoon, and thank her for her continued support of TTCSI's work. We also look forward to your presence during our Services Week celebrations from November 18 to 22nd, November 18 to 22nd, 2024. We also expect to see all of you wonderful members there. To our dedicated platinum sponsor, Exim Bank, and unfortunately, its representative, Mr. Sheldon Thomas, wasn't here with us this afternoon, but I would still like to mention them. Exim Bank's commitment and growth to the development of the services sector is truly appreciated. They always support TTCSI, and we are very grateful to them for that. Thanks also extended now to our presenters, Mr. Thane Pear, for his presentation on crime and what we as a membership can do towards positively changing the landscape for this subject matter. Thank you to Mr. Dexter Simon, who unfortunately left, but he did have a most riveting case study and focus on health. To my fellow director, Mr. Ramon Gregorio, who diligently held down our first session, we say thank you. To our friend, Emerson John Charles, we extend special thanks for your input today, advising us that innovation is indeed integral to transforming an economy. To Ms. Angela Liloy, a critical part of TNT's private sector landscape, we thank you for your continued service to the TTCSI and for your very apt contribution on the state of affairs of the economy. To Dax Driver, thank you too for showing us what green means. You expertly molded the topic together to show us that green is not just for the present, but also for our future. To economist Dr. Marlene Atz, you were called, you answered without hesitation. Your sober position of Trinidad and Tobago's economic outlook continued to be sound. We thank you again for your expertise here today. So before I close now, we would just quickly do some presentations to our presenters. So I would first call on our president. Sorry, we did that. So I now invite Ms. Shirlene Hendrickson. Shirlene? Right, great. So Shirlene will present to Dr. Driver first, and then we'll follow with Dr. Atz. We can clap. Right, you got the photo. Looking at the photographer there. You got it? Yeah. Dr. Atz, we invite you forward now. Shirlene, you staying the grass, right? Okay. Okay. So it's a token of appreciation and a copy of the magazine, literally hot off the press. Great. I now call on Director Alvin Morton to present a Thane Pear. Thank you. I now invite Director Kimberly Chan Budram to present to Mr. Emerson John Charles. And last and certainly not least, I invite our immediate past president, Mr. Mark Edgehill, to present to Ms. Angela Liloy. Watch your camera there. Great. So ladies and gentlemen, our program is now at the end. We invite you now to move to the foyer area where you will receive your copy of the magazine. And while you also mix and mingle, thank you. I'd like to ask our directors, past presidents, and distinguished presenters just to hold on here a bit while we take a few photos. But our members, you can proceed to the foyer area for refreshments and mix and mingle. Thank you. Right here.